You don't wake up one day and decide to lose discipline. What really happens is quieter than that. You start breaking promises to yourself in small, almost invisible ways. You say you'll do something tomorrow, then tomorrow comes and you feel tired. Not dramatic tired, just that deep tiredness that settles in your chest and makes everything feel heavier than it should. And little by little, you stop trusting yourself. What hurts isn't the habit you didn't keep. What hurts is the feeling that you can't rely on yourself anymore. Have you felt that? You look at other people and wonder how they manage to stay consistent, focused, disciplined while you keep restarting the same goals over and over again. And somewhere inside, a quiet voice starts whispering that maybe discipline just isn't who you are. But what if that voice is wrong? What if the problem isn't your lack of discipline, but the way you were taught to practice it? Most women were never taught a form of discipline that respects exhaustion, emotional depth, or the weight of a life already lived. You were taught pressure. You were taught force. You were taught that if something matters, it has to hurt. And so every time you try again, you brace yourself, as if discipline were another battle to survive. This is where the Japanese approach feels almost shocking, because it begins in a place most systems ignore completely. It begins by making discipline so small that your body doesn't resist it. In Japan, progress isn't built through bursts of motivation. It's built through something so modest it almost feels insignificant. The question is never, how do I change my life? But what can I improve just a little today? Not enough to impress anyone. Just enough to keep a promise. This matters more than it sounds because when the step is small, procrastination loses its power. There's nothing to rebel against. Nothing to fear. Nothing that tells your nervous system you're about to be overwhelmed again. Let me ask you something gently. Is there something in your life you keep postponing, not because you don't care, but because it feels too big to face all at once? I once heard the story of a woman in her 50s who wanted to regain focus in her mornings. She had tried waking up earlier, changing routines, setting alarms with inspirational messages, and every attempt ended the same way: frustration and self-blame. One day, she stopped trying to fix her mornings and chose something almost embarrassingly simple. She decided that every morning, she would open the window and stand there for 1 minute. That was the entire commitment. Some days that was all she did. Other days that minute turned into stretching or tea or a short walk. But what changed her life wasn't the routine. It was the identity forming quietly underneath. She stopped seeing herself as someone who can't stay consistent and started seeing herself as someone who shows up, even briefly. That's how discipline is born, in silence. But here's the truth most people never say out loud. Small steps alone are not enough to carry you forward for long. Because even the smallest habit collapses if it feels empty. This is where many women get stuck without realizing why. They try to be disciplined for reasons that don't belong to them anymore. To prove something. To fix themselves. To finally feel worthy. And discipline cannot survive on self-rejection. In Japan, discipline is anchored to something deeper than goals. It's anchored to meaning. To a reason that feels personal, emotional, and alive. When a woman knows why she wants to stay consistent, discipline stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like loyalty. So let me ask you a question that might take a moment to answer. Why do you want the thing you keep trying to build? Not the version you'd say out loud to sound responsible, but the quiet truth. Is it peace? Is it dignity? Is it the desire to recognize yourself again when you look in the mirror? When discipline is connected to meaning, you stop forcing yourself forward and start protecting what matters to you. If this is resonating, you might want to write your answer down or even share it in the comments. Sometimes naming the real reason out loud is the first act of discipline that actually sticks. Another reason discipline fades is more subtle, and it has nothing to do with motivation. It has to do with impatience. Many women abandon consistency because they expect mastery too soon. They want to feel confident immediately, to personalize the process, to do it their way from the beginning. Japanese discipline takes a very different path. It teaches respect for the process itself. First you repeat the basics. Then you adapt. Only much later do you transcend. There is no rush to be special. No pressure to optimize. Let me ask you this with kindness. Where in your life are you demanding confidence before allowing yourself to be a beginner? That pressure alone can sabotage even the strongest intention. And even when you have meaning and patience and small steps, discipline still struggles in one very specific environment: chaos. A cluttered mind, a noisy life, too many decisions, too many distractions, too many open loops pulling at your attention all day long. Japanese simplicity doesn't aim to make life empty. It aims to make life quiet enough for focus to survive. When excess is removed, discipline no longer has to compete. It flows. You don't need to change everything. Just one thing that drains you without giving anything back. One unnecessary distraction. One obligation that no longer fits who you are becoming. Now there is one final habit that ties all of this together, and it's the one most misunderstood in the modern world. It has nothing to do with pushing harder or pretending everything is fine. It's about continuing with dignity, even when no one is watching, praising, or noticing. This habit doesn't announce itself. It doesn't show results quickly, but it's the reason discipline becomes unbreakable over time. And once you understand it, you'll see that real discipline was never loud, impressive, or visible. It was always quiet, repeated, and deeply personal. We'll talk about that next. There is a moment, usually quiet, when a woman realizes that discipline isn't about starting anymore. It's about what happens after the excitement disappears, after no one is watching, after the compliments stop, after the novelty fades and all that's left is repetition. This is where most people give up, not because they don't care, but because they were never taught how to persist without applause. In Japanese culture, there is a word for this kind of strength. It's called gaman. It means enduring with dignity, continuing without complaint, staying present even when the process feels uncomfortable and invisible. Gaman isn't about suffering in silence or forcing yourself to endure what hurts. It's about choosing not to abandon yourself just because the path feels lonely for a while. Let me ask you something honestly. How many times have you stopped simply because no one noticed your effort? This is where discipline either breaks or becomes something sacred. When Japanese women practice gaman, they don't expect motivation to save them. They don't wait to feel inspired. They trust the quiet agreement they made with themselves, even on days when the reward hasn't arrived yet. And here's the paradox most people miss. Gaman only works when it's built on the other habits that came before it. Without kaizen, persistence feels overwhelming. Without ikigai, it feels meaningless. Without respecting the process, what the Japanese call shuhari, it feels rushed and discouraging. Without kanso simplicity, it feels chaotic and draining. Discipline collapses when one of these pieces is missing. Think about that for a moment. Kaizen teaches you to move in small, almost invisible steps, so you don't scare yourself away from your own life. Ikigai gives you a reason that feels emotional and personal, not borrowed from someone else's expectations. Shuhari reminds you that mastery grows in stages, and that repeating the basics is not failure. It's wisdom. Kanso removes the excess noise that steals your focus before you even realize what's happening. And gaman is what allows you to stay when nothing external is pushing you forward. Together, these habits don't create discipline that looks impressive. They create discipline that lasts. I want to tell you a short story. There was a woman in her early 60s who decided she wanted to rebuild focus after retirement. She wasn't chasing productivity. She just wanted to feel mentally present again. At first, she tried reading every day, but she kept stopping. She blamed her attention span. She blamed her age. She blamed herself. Then she changed one thing. She stopped trying to read for long periods and committed to reading one page every afternoon. One page. That was her kaizen. Her ikigai wasn't becoming smarter. It was the desire to feel connected to herself again, to feel that quiet joy she remembered from earlier years. She read the same genre every day, following the same routine without changing or optimizing. That was her shu phase. No pressure to adapt yet. She also removed distractions during that time. No phone. No background noise. Just one chair, one page. That was her kanso. Some days she didn't feel like reading at all, but she still showed up. No drama. No self-criticism. Just presence. That was her gaman. 6 months later, she wasn't trying to be disciplined. She simply was. This is what discipline looks like when it's practiced silently. And here's something important that deserves to be said out loud. Discipline is not masculine or feminine, but the way it's taught often ignores how deeply women are affected by emotional context. A woman doesn't fail because she lacks willpower. She fails because the system she's using doesn't honor her inner world. Japanese discipline does. It doesn't ask you to conquer yourself. It asks you to cooperate with yourself. Let me ask you something that may feel uncomfortable. What would change in your life if discipline stopped being a punishment and started being a form of self-respect? Most women don't quit their goals. They quit the version of themselves that feels constantly pressured and unseen. That's why Japanese habits feel different. They are practiced quietly, daily, without the need to prove anything. No one needs to know. No one needs to applaud. The reward is internal. And this is where everything comes together. Discipline, when rooted in kaizen, ikigai, shuhari, kanso, and gaman, stops being about reaching a finish line. It becomes about becoming someone you trust. Someone who doesn't overpromise. Someone who doesn't abandon herself. Someone who understands that progress doesn't need to be loud to be real. If you've spent years being strong for everyone else, this kind of discipline will feel unfamiliar at first. Almost uncomfortable in its gentleness. But that's how you'll know it's working. You don't need to change your whole life. You don't need to reinvent yourself. You don't need to become someone else. You only need to begin practicing discipline the way it was always meant to be practiced, quietly, consistently, and with respect for who you are now. Before we end, let me ask you one final question. Which of these habits do you feel you've been missing the most? The small step? The meaning? The patience with the process? The simplicity? Or the courage to persist when no one sees? If you feel called, share it in the comments. Not as a promise, just as an acknowledgement. And if this message stayed with you until the end, consider subscribing. Not because you need more information, but because reminders like this help you stay connected to yourself in a world that constantly pulls you away. Discipline doesn't shout. It repeats. Every day. And that quiet repetition is what changes everything.